Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sapumar Rupasinghe, committee member of Civil Engineering Section Committee. So on behalf of the Civil Engineering Section Committee of IESL, I'd like to welcome all the members and non-members who are participating today for today's webinar on entry of engineers to the larger world of decision making. I think that be an interesting and very essential topic for all the engineers, especially for civil engineers. So I'd like to invite Engineer Madam Kamala Gunawardana to welcome and introduce our resource person for today's session, Engineer Nishantha Kamaladasa, to the gathering. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Sapamal Engineer, and the team leader of the presentations today. Good evening, everybody. I'm Kamala Gunawardana, and highway consultant and fellow representative of IESL this session also. I'm working with the Civil Engineering Sectional Committee in a bit closer, and I can put my inputs very freely these days, so I'm taking that opportunity. Today's presentation is organized by the Civil Engineering Sectional Committee under the member development programs. We have planned several activities and non-technical presentations are also a part of it. So this is the third presentation under member development concept during this session. I appreciate the arrangements of these activities by the subcommittee chairman, Engineer Manjula Samarasinghe, and the chairman of Civil Engineering Sectional Committee, Professor Ishan Jayasinghe. Let me come to the event now. Today's title is Entry of Engineers to the Larger World of Decision Making, a timely appropriate topic that we will entertain right now. Let me introduce the presenter today, who will address an area where civil engineers have to look into, differentiating our strengths and weaknesses, I believe. He will tell us how to see as a larger spectrum to accomplish our goals and not only detailing. He's a well-known engineer among our members and especially among our many other professionals. He's Nishantha Kamaladasa, engineer and management consultant. If I say a bit of his background, he's a product from the University of Moratuwa, and in his long career as a professional engineer, he has worked in the irrigation department and has been worked as a faculty member of Sri Lanka Institute of Development Administration. Also, he has worked as head of two organizations, Center for Housing Planning and Building, we all know CHPB, and Distance Learning Center Limited. Actually, I can't resist telling you about his special capability other than engineering qualities. That is that he's a very good writer. I know personally, he's an author of 10 books in Sinhala and 2 publications in English on different themes of management. With these remarks, and without further ado, I invite today's presenter, Engineer Nishantha Kamaladasa, to take over the Zoom platform now. We will enjoy this evening. Over to you, Nishantha. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kamala, for the introduction. And good evening to you all. Welcome to the larger world of decision making. Let me share the screen. Now, I hope now you can see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. Now, in my career, I have met 2 types of engineers. The first group, they are very good at solving problems using their engineering knowledge, and they come out with very important engineering solutions working within the narrow boundary of engineering. And there are other engineers when they are being given a problem, they will not only look at the engineering theories, but also look at other non-engineering solutions that could make the problem solved. So they would be stepping out of the narrow boundary of engineering and step into the larger world. So I want you to appreciate these two because it's very fascinating to be within the narrow boundary of engineering and use whatever we have learned during our university time. But is it what people require? What people want for me is simple, cost-effective solutions, not very complicated, sophisticated solutions, which may be very good at, and you can marvel about those second type of solutions, but it is not what really people want. Let me bring a video clip from the famous film, Hindi film. I think most of you may have seen it, Three Idiots. So this video clip will help us to appreciate these two kinds of solutions. And let me share that with you. I want to tell first the background of this. Now, this particular episode happens in a university meant for engineering students. And the day is that new entrants come to the university, and the occasion is that the professor speaks to this new entrants. In his inaugural speech, he brings in a special pen, and he calls it the astronaut's pen. So let's look at this video. I'm sorry, the visual is not, so let me try to play the video in a different
Screen is not
mode.
big.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So let me share the screen again. Yeah, we will go to the first. Yeah.
Let me tell you a very interesting story. ये एस्ट्रोनॉट्स पेन है. स्पेस में फाउंटेन पेन, बॉल पेन कुछ नहीं चलता. तो लाखों डॉलर खर्च करने के बाद साइंटिस्ट ने ऐसा पेन इजाद किया जिससे कोई भी एंगल, कोई भी टेम्परेचर, जीरो ग्रेविटी में हम लिख सकते हैं. One day, when I was a student, the director of our institute called me. He said, "Veeru Sasubudde." I said, "Yes, sir. Come here." मैं डर गया. He showed me this pen. He said, "This is a symbol of excellence."
So it is the symbol of excellence. That's what he's trying to say. And now the beauty of this pen is you can take it anywhere in the universe and you still can write. I think we all know that when you go to space, there is no gravity and ink will not flow. But here with this pen, you can write anywhere within the universe. So this has been researched and spent a lot of money and had been made. And this pen has been given to this professor by his professor. And when he was given this pen, he was told that to keep it, and if he meets the most outstanding student in his life, to hand over this pen to that. So it is to go from one generation to the other. So it's a symbol of excellence. Now let us see what happens now. He is trying to make use of this pen to inspire the people. Now he is asking, who likes to get this pen? Now see the response.
Give it to you. और जिस दिन तुम्हें तुम्हारे जैसा कोई एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी स्टूडेंट मिले तो ये पेन उसे पास ऑन कर देना. 32 साल से वीरू सहस्त्रबुद्धे is waiting for the next वीरू सहस्त्रबुद्धे. क्या इस बैच में कोई है जो ये पेन ले जाएगा? Good. Hands down.
This is where the problem comes. Let's see the problem.
Notice board पे लिखो. I said put down your hands.
सर मेरा एक सवाल है सर. सर स्पेस में फाउंटेन पेन बॉल पेन चलता नहीं है तो एस्ट्रोनॉट्स ने पेंसिल का इस्तेमाल क्यों नहीं किया?
He's asking a very important question. Now, why should you spend so much of money, lakhs and lakhs of rupees, whereas you could have taken a pencil? So he's making a solution which is cost effective and simple. Now see what happens to the professor.
$1 बच जाते सर.
I will get back to you on this.
So the professor has to leave the scene as a dejected person. So this is the situation. Now let me address. Okay, now we are here. Now I want to give you a problem. If you look at this photo, you will realize that there are two school-going children. They are trying to cross a river, and the path is very difficult. It's risky, and they are risking their life to go to school. And if civil engineers are given this problem, they simply has a solution: construct a bridge across the river and provide the road to the destination. So that is the engineering solution that we can propose as civil engineers. Okay, now if you look at these remote villages, they are having so much of problems. Now the basic issue is there are limited economic opportunities. If they do a cultivation, they will not getting into the market. It's very difficult and nobody comes to collect those. And in addition, even accessing the centers that provide services like now what is in red, red color font, these are the two things that will be addressed by the bridge. But there are so many other things. There is no grid electricity to these remote villages. And sometimes even no good drinking water, CKDU and other problems are there. And we know that telecom signals were a luxury those days, but with the pandemic, with education going online, this again is a big issue. They don't get signals. And top of all that, there are attacks from the wild animals because they are living in remote part of the island. So when they have such a big number of issues, we will be proposing a bridge to address two of the major issues. That's well and good. So the engineers can give solutions. Probably, grid electricity, you can extend, erect towers and lay wires and give electricity. Drinking water, water board can intervene. Civil engineers there can intervene. Telecom, there's a possibility. Wild animals, again, you can have an electric fence or whatever. There are engineering solutions for all these. But the problem is, we may have solutions, but at what cost? Because they are in difficult terrain, the investment will be huge. And the operation and maintenance cost also will be huge. Now, if you take, for example, electricity, providing electricity to a long distance village, there will be a big loss on the way. So the operational cost will be high. Maintenance cost also is going to be high. And what about the environment cost and other consequences? You're going to fragment the animal habitats and making certain animals is extinct from the world. Sri Lanka is considered the biological hotspot. So, most of the world is looking at us, whether we will be able to preserve this. So all these are at stake when we make the solutions. Okay. Is there a non-engineering solution? That is something we have to now look at. Is there a possibility to move them into more developed areas without taking bridges, electricity, and all that to the jungle? Why don't we take the people in the jungle to a developed area? You would say, easier said than done. I mean, this is a free country. How can you make people move from their habitats if they are not doing it voluntarily? Will they be happy to move? That would be the question. Okay, so let's see about this. What we are seeing today is there is urban migration already happening. What we are seeing is hospitals, rural hospitals are being closed down, schools are already being closed down, and people move into the city centers where there are so many facilities and opportunities. The main thing, the second one is the main thing, so many opportunities. Okay. Now, I also would like to bring in one of the important surveys done by the Colombo University in year 2014. Please remember this year, 2014 is important. Youth aged between 18 and 25, and the most crucial question had been, what are your future plans? The answer is, by hook or crook, they want to leave the country and go for greener pastures. Mind you, this survey done in 2014. After the war, 2009, we closed the war, and there were big mega projects in the country. The country was prospering economically. During that time, there was 60% youth ready to leave the country by some means. And if you do a survey today, the things would be entirely different. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a passion, even in rural youth, because this survey has covered the whole country. There is a passion to migrate into looking for better opportunities, greener pastures, had been the passion even in our ancient relatives. We were moving. But those are voluntary migrations, you would say. We talk here about getting them to move. That is a different story. Okay, so let us probe into that as well. Is it possible to get them to move? So that would it be a good question? Wrong question. Then what is the right question? I would be moving. So is it possible to get them to move? No, it is not the one. They already want to move, but something is preventing them to move. What is that preventing them to move? There are physical reasons and there are psychological reasons. If you look at physical reasons, city is expensive. We all know. No place to stay. Anybody coming from the village will find very difficult to find a house or some accommodation. And if you happen to settle in a suburb, there is a transportation cost that involved in getting into work, and some of the skills required for city jobs are not within their reach. They have been used to cultivation, agriculture had been their strength. They are scared about the unknown. So anyone who is who has to move into unknown area is scared. So that's a psychological reason. And the other thing is, you whenever there is a problem, strength is not there. Yes. Is there a problem with my video?
There was some breaking of your voice, so I don't know whether it's the...
Yeah, now it's okay.
Now okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. Now the other psychological reason is the food security. Oh, sorry. Food security. Now, when you are in a remote village, if you go to the jungle, you can pluck a fruit and then survive the day. But when you are in the city, everything has to be you have to buy everything with money, which is scarce at the initial stages, especially. So these are physical and psychological reasons that prevents people moving. Now, can we give solution to these problems? Yes, there is a possibility, providing a place to live. We can build up houses and give them accommodation, livelihood. We can provide livelihood and employment. Yes, we can train them to get a job. We can give some initial support while all these are done. Until they find living livelihood. Okay. Now, for the psychological thing also, you can do counseling, and also you can make them set. I don't know whether it's right. No? Okay. Now, I think now you can see. Now, so what are the positive consequences when we move people out of their habitats? Let's see. We will be able to restore the lost jungle. That will be given to animals, and animals will have extended habitat as a result. And there will be less animal attacks because they can enjoy the forest area for themselves. And there will be more water in the catchments. And we know when the forest cover is improved, the water will be retained within the catchment, and there will be less floods downstream, especially with the climate change and all that. This is going to help us in a big way. And there is already scarce labor in the construction industry. I think most civil engineers are aware that the scarce labor is filled up by the Indians, Nepalese, people from Burma, Bangladesh, and all that crowd. So there's an opportunity for labor in the construction industry if we provide other opportunities. And you have to remember another thing. 33% of our population in Sri Lanka engage in agriculture, but they produce only 4% of GDP. 33% producing 4%. So they are not currently in the opportunity to engage in more productive work. And the other most important thing is beneficiaries will be happy with a better livelihood and access to opportunities. and at the end of the day, country will prosper. So we can see a lot of advantages by moving people out of their remote villages and settling down in cities. Then the next question comes is whether there are risks. Risk mapping is something important in decisions. Will there be sufficient jobs for the people who will be moved out? Will there be sufficient funds for us to support them at the initial stages, to train them, to have accommodation and all that? I'm sorry, there is a disturbance. Somebody has to mute the mic. We can hear the sounds. Thank you. And what about the negative consequences of moving people out of the villages? That also we have to take into stock. Now let's see the negative consequences. Now, these are people who have been producing the agricultural output, which is our food. Will there be food shortages when they are moved out? And probably we may have to import food from other countries. But this is a false alarm, I would say, because most of the agricultural produce currently are destroyed by animal attacks. 30% of the fruits, I think all of you know, there are peacocks, there are pigs, wild boar, there are other animals, monaru, monkeys, elephants, they all are out to destroy the crops. So there is a big loss in our crops. So if we leave these habitats to the animals, probably the rest of the area could be saved. And there is one important thing about the food is fruits and vegetables. When they are transported, there is 30% of the output is perished. So we would be able to save much of the thing, and there won't be, as a result, we will not have a food shortage. And what about urban congestion? When people are moved out of the remote areas and planted in cities, the city population will grow. Already there is congestion in the city. Are we going to add to that problem? That is another question that can be asked. But according to the statistics, Colombo is not considered as a congested city. By the world standards, we are having only 600,000 people living inside the CMC boundaries. And there is another 1.4 million who travel from outside, and the total people who will be staying inside the city at one moment would be maximum 2 million. Now to have an underground railway or underground transport system, you require at least 5 million people. So we have not reached the congestion stage yet. There is traffic congestion for other reasons, not because of the increase in population. So we are yet to have urban congestion. And the final question that comes to our mind would be, is it realistic? Is it armchair specialist dream that we are talking about? Can we put this on ground? Will it work? Yes. There is a classic example. South Korea did it. South Korea had a forest cover about 29% at one moment in their history. So that is the forest cover exactly we are having today. When the forest cover depleted to that level, they decided to reverse this. So what they did was, they supported the remote area people to grow forest. And when the forest came up to some level, they were removed from those areas and planted in the cities. And they were given employment after training. Of course, they were given accommodation also. And as a result, they were able to restore the forest area from 29% to 64%. That is more than double. And not only that, they were able to economically prosper as a result of the labor availability in the cities. So this is something that had been done by other countries, not something that people are dreaming about. So the next question, the final question remains, will engineers still have work? Yes, they will be having work. They have to build houses. They have to create other infrastructure to meet the urban demands. All that will be important work and meaningful work. Unlike the huge investment that will go into the forest area. Now, if you continue to do this infrastructure expansion into the forest area, what would happen? We will be creating urban pockets within you will be fragmenting the animal habitats, and there will be so many animals extinct, and there will be so many other problems as we discussed earlier. And not only that, this particular urban access will facilitate migration. And finally, this infrastructure will be abandoned by people, the infrastructure built at a huge cost will be without much return. So therefore, we may have to rethink about what we are going to propose as solutions. Whether it should be purely engineering or whether we should put on the table large amount of proposals, solutions, which will consist of engineering solutions and also non-engineering solutions, and let the people or the country or the policymakers pick up the best out of it. So the more we open to larger world, the more we have a say in the policymaking process. This is the first point that I want to come out in my presentation. Though it took half an hour, I hope that justifies, because it's an important deviation. Nobody is thinking on these lines, and therefore it is important that I put this on the table. But there are other things. Now, we engineers can wear two hats. One is the hat of an analyst. Other one is a hat of a synthesist. Now, take an analyst, what he does, he will break down a component into small parts, and each part will be taken separately for study. So if you are given something to study, if you are an analyst, what you will do is you will break down the thing into small parts, and you will take each part separately and study. But if you are a synthesist, if you are given something to study, you will take it as a whole without breaking and look at what is surrounded, what is in the environment, and collate your thing with the rest of the environment and see the bigger picture with interconnections and interdynamics. Now, this is not concept. I will explain this by giving an example. If you want to address rural poverty, there is one way. You go to the village and ask them what their problems are. So they will come out and say the input prices have gone over the years. So we are finding it difficult to cultivate. And they will also say that the output prices are not stabilized, they are not stable, they fluctuate, and therefore we are not having a reasonable income. So that would be their grievances. So when you look at those grievances, it's natural that you will come out and then recommend the government, you should give subsidies. So fertilizer subsidy was given as a result of this approach. And also there will be a recommendation to the government, give a certified price. So the government guaranteed prices have come up as a result of this analyst approach. Okay, now we will go to the synthesis approach in finding solutions to rural poverty. Now you take the village, you don't break down, you don't go into the village, you take village as a whole. And you try to find out what are the other things surrounding the village. You have towns, you have cities, you have Colombo, the capital, Middle East, Korea, Italy, those countries where people go out for jobs. Now, if you look at this large picture, there are interconnections and interdynamics in this large picture that you can find. Now see, what happened? People move out of village to town to towns for jobs, mason work and all that. Then they will go to cities, garment factories. They will move into Colombo to join army or the government service or whatever, private company. Construction industry. So they will go to mid, and so what happens is, as a result of this, there are three things that happens. First one, there will be less people in the village, and as a result, they will fetch a better price. If you have hired the person for 1,000 rupees per day, now you have to pay him 1,500. So the value would go because of there is a scarcity of labor. Then the people who move out of the village will ask for supplies from the village. They will ask for food, rice, fruits, vegetables, and even people go to Middle East will ask for umbala kada sambolek kawan bottle එක දාලා. So those are some of the demands that will come, and the village has to supply. As a result of this, there will be, and there is third phenomena, that money home. And with this money, people renovate their houses, get electricity, construct agricultural well, purchase agriculture water pump and try to cultivate in a better manner. They will purchase hand tractors, demo batta, then motorbikes, whatever. Tsunami, bhutya, so many things. So there is going to be development as a result of this investment back to the village. So what I want to stress is, if you really look at where is the hat of a synthesis, what would happen is you will see a different picture, entirely different picture, and you will propose entirely different solutions to the problems you confront with. Now, for example, you will recommend the government facilitate migration. Don't limit sending our women to Middle East as housemaids. Train them as nurses to go to Europe and fetch a better price. So they will recommend the government the migration, facilitating migration. So what I'm trying to say is, if you wear the hat of an analyst, the solution that comes out are different from when you wear the hat of a synthesis. And it's better that we once in a while wear these hats and see. Now, I was talking about synthesizing in terms of space, but also we can synthesize in terms of time. If I ask you this question, in 20 years' time, how will you travel from Colombo to Anuradhapura or Colombo to Jaffna? What will be the mode of transport? So some people will say bullet train or expressway or whatever. But I see things differently. I see we will be using this kind of a vehicle to travel from Colombo to Anuradhapura. Don't laugh at me right now. This is based on drone technology. And already there are vehicles that are being produced in certain countries. The research is going on to produce a vehicle that can carry a single person from one place to the other. Now, you will say there will be a lot of accidents and it will not be safe to travel if everybody starts traveling, start flying. Yes, you have a point. But in parallel to this drone technology development, there is another technology that is being developed, that is autopilot cars. What you have is a car with sensors, and sensors can capture signals, and you can maneuver the car to carry. Now, if you can combine these two technologies, what is drone technology and the autopilot technology, you will come out a solution that is safe and easy to do. Now, what will happen as a result? The road engineers, highway engineers will not have enough work on the road sector. They may have to find some other means if this happens in the future. So what I'm trying to say is at least now they have to think without having the most widest roads that you find in Hambantota or whatever place. It is better to have a more optimum road width right now, because we don't know whether the roads will expire its valid lifetime in future. Now, this comes as a result of collating two technologies and try to see a bigger picture in terms of time. What we earlier saw in terms of space, now we are trying to see in terms of time, what can we come out when you collect or when you combine different technologies and try to see the world. Okay, engineers by the upbringing more used to analysis. So that is how we have been doing our work. So we have to be careful here not to get into the trap of an analyst. Then the third point that I want to raise in this discussion is we are fond of linear systems. There is a risk because the physical world temperature increases, what will happen? The volume increases, or the length of the wire will increase. So there is a linear relationship between the two. There is one is an independent variable. When the independent variable changes, the dependent variable also changes. So that is how it works. That is the physical world. But when it comes to the social world or the psychological world, it is not the case. We will take an example. Now, I don't know whether you remember, at say about a few months back, government introduced a price control system for coconut. What happened? They design a ring to measure the diameter of a coconut, and they fix prices according to the diameter. So that was the expectation of the government. So there's a control price and the merchants will sell coconut at the control price. That was the intention. So there was a change in A, and as a result, government expected B to change. But what happened? B reacted. How did they react? In our boutique, the Mudalali, when asked about coconut, there were a couple of coconuts, which are rotten, which are not, you can't buy those things. So when I asked whether there are other coconuts, then Mudalali said, how many you want? I have some in my backyard. So he brought me from the backyard and gave me coconuts at a price higher than the control price. So merchants were doing this, and what did the reaction of the government? Government in turn sent flying squad. They raided the boutiques to find out whether they are hiding coconut stocks. So when I went next week, the Mudalali said, I can't go to the jail, so I stopped selling coconut. So government had to come out with another solution. And what did they do? They sent army trucks with coconuts. And what happened? When the coconut were available cheaper, people brought them in bulk. And that was a black market. And they tried to buy from army vehicles and to sell it at a higher price. Then army decided to limit the number of nuts to 5. So one day my neighbor said, there's an army vehicle in the junction, Talawatuguru junction. If you go, you can buy 5 nuts. So for me to go to Talawatuguru junction and come back in a 3-wheeler, it takes about 200 rupees. So divided by 5, it would be 40 rupees per nut, in addition to the price given by the army truck, which was more than what was provided by our Mudalali. So what happened? It failed. It went into a vicious cycle and ultimately collapsed. And government withdraw not only the price control of coconut, but price controls of everything. Now there is no price control at all. So the physical world behave in one way, but the social world doesn't behave in the same manner. So this is what we have to realize as engineers, because we are fond of the physical world. We will be thinking that we can apply the laws in the physical world into the social world, which is not possible. So it's a different ball game at all. The problem is, yes, engineers are used. So, okay. Now, linear systems also, there are so many, it doesn't belong to a boundary. Now, take an example. As an alternative to gas, there is a proposal to have firewood stoves. So what will happen as a result? People will cook from firewood stoves, and as a result, there will be smoke. And when there is smoke in the kitchen, what will happen? There will be lung cancers in the woman. The large amount of lung cancers in women are because of this smoke in the kitchen. That is what statistics says. So you can see a cascade system happening, and also you also can see multi-step system happening along with the cascade system. What is that? Not only the firewood stove will result in lung cancer, it would also deplete the forest cover, because firewood is not available right now. You have to cut forest. And not only that, there will be time spent on cleaning the dirt and removing the ash and all that. And it will be added disadvantage. So there is a multi-step system working. So what I'm trying to say is, most of us don't see beyond one step. Because the physical world, probably within a boundary, you can work that. But in the actual world, there are no boundaries. It's a boundless situation. And therefore, you have to accept cascade system and multi-step systems. Yes. Then the next point I want to say is, it is important for us to focus future, because in planning, engineers need to focus future. If you don't focus it rightly, probably we will be doing our plans wrongly. Now, these are some figures attributed to certain years. 1980, there's a figure like that. There are figures up to 2005. So assume that we are in 2005 and we want to forecast the figure in 2010. So I think most of you know that there is a line of best fit, or the regression line. People who know statistics, they are familiar with this line. So you draw a line and then you read the 2010 figure and it comes to about 37. So future is forecasted based on the past figures. That is what we have done. Now imagine the y-axis represent the Fuji film roll sales in millions in the world. Now Fuji film roll manager, the top man CEO, is planning 2010, planning for 2010. He has these past figures, and he, according to this particular graph, he need to produce 37 million film rolls. That will be the demand. But you know what happened? There was a digital camera, and there are no more film rolls right now. So future forecasting based on a linear system is not going to help. Based on facts and figures, and based on past, what had happened, what we do is extrapolate. Now that is something we are familiar with. We extrapolate. It is not possible with all. Linear logic is assumed here. So I'm again warning you against linear logic. Now, future could be forecasted based on the past with past facts as guide. That's what we did in the earlier one. But you can do it in an entirely different manner. Nothing much about the past. Future, in the first phenomenon, future is seen as an extension of the past, whereas in the second, future is intuitively just looking at what is happening currently, collating what is happening. Now, this is what I did when I suggested that future transport will be the combination of drone technology and the autopilot technology putting together. This is an important thing. It can emerge independent of the past. One more important point about forecasting. Now, forecasting gliders will come to know that there is a problem when they reach here, when they pass this point, particular point, when they pass this point. But normal people will not realize there is a problem because there is growth yet. They will realize there is a problem when it comes here, when it passes here, when it starts declining. So leadership is what? To forecast earlier, before the decline starts. When the growth slows down, you have to come out with solutions. Has a safe net. It has come up in the past, so why not? It will proceed. Then the last thing I would like to share with you is the open systems. Now, we engineers like to work within boundaries. What we have to realize is these boundaries are not closed. They can be infiltrated. Whatever you do, it is very hard to keep a boundary. Now take an example. Today, we are facing a dollar crisis. Most of the people say, close the economy and don't import. Produce what is required inside the country. That is the outcry. Okay, but let us see. Yes, that's an important point. I agree. At least we should produce the food because food is important. Then out of food, the rice is important because that's a staple food. Even though we don't have anything else, we could survive with rice. Right. Take rice, for example. Now, when we cultivate rice, we import seeds from outside the country. We import fertilizer from outside the country. We import agrochemicals from outside of the country. We import agriculture utensils, machinery, equipment outside the country. We import oil and fuel that are required to operate those from outside the country. So what are we putting as input? Only our labor and land and water. We need all these inputs even to cultivate our staple food. Okay, that's one point. The second point, okay, let's say we produce all those inputs inside the country. It's just not possible. But let us assume, but even that, you will one day find that you are starving in Colombo while there is ample stocks in Polonnaru and Nampara because there is no fuel to transport the food. That is what would happen. So there is no point, maintaining a closed system. Now, to bring the necessary inputs, at least the fuel, we need to produce something to the world and sell it. But now what has happened? As a result of this boundary, we are not importing the required raw materials that are necessary to produce the output. And therefore, our export markets are getting closed. And one fine day, we will find that we don't have outputs and we don't have inputs as well. So this is an open system. You need to have the flow. Inputs have to come in, output has to flow out, and that is how you operate the system. So these are controversial issues. So therefore, what I thought was, I would rather put this into your mind and see how it works inside your mind. I thought of concluding this session within 1 hour. So I will take a few minutes to conclude, and then we will open for discussion. And I know you may have so many questions to ask. Yeah, okay. Now, Many fear openness. They want to erect boundaries. That is what is the that is the solution most of the people think. Now the Soviet Union again thought the same thing when they were having problems with the West. So they had an iron curtain. That was what the other world call it, iron curtain. They restricted all the imports, and they could afford to do that because it's a huge country. They had fuel, they had so many minerals. It's a huge country. So there was a possibility for them to close down. So there was an iron curtain, and they even restricted the genes that was coming from the West because they were not producing genes. So there was one of my friends who was working in the Soviet Union, and they were allowed to go to Europe during the vacation to work and to bring dollars to Soviet Union. They welcome dollars. So with the dollars, these friends brought genes to Soviet Union. How did they bring? There was an import restriction, but there was no, person who is wearing a gene is not, that gene cannot be removed at the airport. So their genes came into the system, and they could be sold in the open market in the black market at a very high price. So the most income did not came from the dollars that they earned from Europe, but from selling the genes that they brought to the Soviet Union. That is what will happen to the closed systems. You cannot have a closed system in this world. There will be so many infiltrations. Right. We are specialists. We have to be proud about it. We are strong in certain aspects because we know something the other people don't know. We are strong in our analysis. We are strong in our logic, structure certain things, compartment within boundaries. Cautious enough. That would be the weakness too. So my suggestion or the recommendation is build up competencies to able to synthesize, intuitively think, collate things which are different, see the interactions, interdynamics, and try to combine. Guess what would happen? Dynamic relationships, which are circular, not only linear. And even when you are thinking of linear equations, think what can happen beyond the boundary, getting the bigger picture with links. So this is what I am proposing. Working beyond boundaries. Have both. What? Wear a hat of a specialist. You will love to do that, but also get on to the shoes of a generalist. That is a requirement. If you are equipped with both, nobody will be able to surpass you. So I wish you all the best, and I would like to take up questions, and we will see how we can work out whatever concerns you are having on this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So forum is open for the discussion.
I can see Shavindra Shavindranath Fernando, our earlier past president of IESL, raising the hand. Can we hear from Shavindra?
Oh, yes. Nishant, as you know very well, that I always make it a point to listen to you. He's my batchmate and a good friend of mine, and I always used to admire his outward thinking and out-of-the-box thinking. Right. To cut a very long story short, he gave a completely holistic view. And I have a very famous thinking in my own mind. We Sri Lankans know all the solutions to all the problems, and we simply do not do anything about it. So where have we gone wrong? I'm not going to go to analysis of that particular statement that I made. I leave it for a future discussion on the same. We know that, you ask any problem about the food security, ministers will come and say, this is what they're going to do, this is what they're going to do, and they, as very excellently Nishanta put across, they take piecemeal solutions and they get into a bigger and a bigger and a bigger and a bigger mess. That's what we have done for all these last several decades, right? Then he was talking about various things. I don't want to take a lot of your time and dominate. I don't want to give another lecture. He was, in a way, speaking about dignity of labor. The word I heard in 1970s by late Cinema Vandarnayaka, when she came for a prize giving of our school. The first time I heard about the dignity of labor. Just a couple of days ago, I was driving with my son-in-law. He came from States recently. And in front of me was a Jeep, JEEP Jeep, huge Jeep. And very few Jeeps we see on these roads in our country. He just pointed that to me and said, Tati, do you know, my lawn is mowed by a guy who comes in this Jeep. And on top of his, he has all the paraphernalia, and he earns much more than perhaps I do for an hour, right? He's a computer specialist. And what do we see in our country? The people who come and cut the grass, they come in the dirtiest clothes, packing a ramshackled grass cutter in his bike, right? Trying to earn a living. So I'm not going to say anything more about the comparative of USA and Sri Lanka. That's not what I want to say. So what he was trying to say about the training housemaids to become nurses, right? Now, likewise, training illiterate village craftsmen to come to the urban cities and earn a decent living, they had to be given a proper training. He was touching on that. What have we done about that? As engineers, I'm asking this question from you guys, right? What have we done to raise the skill level of our technicians? We are talking of chartered engineers and glorifying the chartered engineers with no bounds. What has to be really done is engineers focus on training the technicians, which is absolutely lacking. You ask any engineer, when you want to get a job done, you hire laborers, and they are the most unskilled laborers, though we call them the best skilled laborers. We have best skilled laborers. I work with them. We have a handful of best skilled laborers. Right. I'm going on to a few other points. To give just one example from my own life, where he was speaking about the social dimension. When I was this would have happened about 30 years ago, and I was doing renewable energy projects in this country long years ago. I was introducing small hydro projects into the village levels. Even the pico hydro was something that we coined. It's now gone into the world vocabulary, pico hydro, nano hydro, or whatever, small hydro. Right. One day we went on a place that was recommended by a social group to give electricity using a small stream in a place called Pahatgam. I still do not know where that village exists. That's on the Badulla Passara Road. And when we got down from the Jeep in Badulla Passara Road, the guy who showed us the village showed just a green patch in the precipice, in the real down, I mean, in a godforsaken place. 3 or 4 of us started climbing down. It took about 3 to 4 hours. And they have all the places that you have in the Sigiri, what is this, Sripada, Mahagiri, and everything. So we were taking a huge, I mean, long journey through the jungle to reach the Pahatgam. And we saw Naki Ammala, Achila, Hal Mitia Karethang in the bay, Hal Mitia Dekata Bedala, Karethang, Hati Dagan, make an Arangino, Badulla Passara Mahamargata. We went, we did all the measurements. It was only about 25 houses in the whole village. Huge agricultural paddy field, because there was water in plenty. We had water in plenty to give a small hydro for a town. We did within half an hour, we could find enough water to give electricity to every village, every house. Fortunately, I don't want to give the name of the person. He's now a senior professor in sociology. He was in our group. And in the end, we were to discuss about how we do this project in that village. We were all geared up as engineers to give a solution with all the how we can do this small hydro. But he, before we could speak, he said one thing. Amme තාත්තේ අපිට තියෙන සල්ලි ප්‍රමාණය පොඩි ගාණක් තියෙන. ලක්ෂ 2ක් වගේ තිබුණේ දවස්වල. මේකෙන් අපිට ඔබතුමාලගේ හැම ගෙදරකටම ලයිට් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. What do you want us to do with this money, 200,000 rupees? What do you think was the answer for the villager? අනේ මහත්තයෝ අපිට ලයිට් නැතුව කමන්නේ නැහැ. පුළුවන් නම් පාරක් හදලා දෙන්න. See exactly what Nishanta said. We engineers go bubbling with solutions to give problems to their problems. Their problems are different, my dear friends. Nishanta put it so succinctly and classically. And I just cannot know how, I do not know how to thank him to open the eyes of a large number of engineers who try to find solutions to problems that are not theirs. They try to always find the wrong solution to the wrong problem, whereas the real problem is something else. Thank you very much, Nishanta, for opening the eyes of at least 40 engineers. I hope most of them are young, except for a few of us who are of old age. And lastly, but not least, on the drone technology. I don't know whether you know, when I was the president, I brought in a keynote speaker. You know how I got to him? That's a different story altogether. In 2014, that was. That guy was, he had worked in the Rolls-Royce company in UK and came back to settle down and help Sri Lanka. An engineer, discarded by Sri Lankan system, went to UK and became an engineer because IESL was too small for them, big for him. Sri Lankan education system was too big for him. He was chased to UK by his parents, became an engineer, worked in the Rolls-Royce, came here bubbling to give a solution to agricultural crop transportation using drone technology. One day he called me and said, Shavi, we lifted half a ton of, let's say, brinjals from this place to this place. Absolutely the exact model that Nishant was explaining. You program the drone and go there, pick up the agri stuff and bring to the same place. Oh, my people are saying not to shout, right? Same place where it was required. Apa මොකද කරන්නේ? නුවරඑළියෙන් ඔක්කොම චප්ප කරගෙන ලොරි ගේනවා මැනින් මාකට් එකට. මැනින් මාකට් එක දැල්ලා ඕකට නැගගෙන මිනිස්සු බෙදලා හරලා ඕක උස්සන් යනවා ලෝකේ වටේට. ආයි. මේ සිස්ටම් එක අපි වෙනස් කරන්නේ නැත්තේ ඇයි? අපි ඔක්කොම දන්නවා solutions මේ ඔක්කොම ප්‍රශ්න වලට. Don't you think the engineers having the solution to all these problems? What are we doing? Thank you very much, Nishanta.
Yes, Shavinder, thank you for the supplementary work that you did. Thank you. I would like to get questions questioning my concepts or whatever I have, because I also like to learn. I'm one who would like to learn from the audience also. So therefore, if there is anybody who can question me about some of the points I have raised, I would be so much happy to discuss those issues and to learn out of that. So house is again open. Any questions? As I found electrical engineers in the audience, including Shavi, I also was just thinking whether the Ceylon electricity board will go out of business in a big, not really out of the business, but it will lose the market share very soon. The reason I'm telling is there are two technologies developing parallel to each other. One is the battery technology, other one is the solar cells. Solar panels. So these technologies are developing at a higher rate. Probably very soon we will be able to have our electricity generated solely from solar power and stored in a battery. And we may be able to cut off the national grid entirely from the national grid. Now, if that day comes, electricity board will be having customers, the large customers who will not be able to produce their own energy. I mean, this is planning for the future, distant future. That's what I'm trying to say. Is required when they are also planning their midterm management is required. So synthesis again is required for the electricity board also, like highways.
I don't think you want me to respond, do you? Well, this is not lecture for me, you know. I mean, leave it for another day. That's
okay.
Not a subject that I want to open up now.
Yeah. I know, but I was loudly thinking. I mean, is there a possibility? So this is how the engineers should think of the future. I mean, what possibilities are there in stock for us, rather than trying to see future as the extension of the past. Future is really emerging in a very independent manner. So our future is going to be entirely different. So don't based on past facts and figures. Don't rely on those. So that is my advice. I badly need a question contesting my presentation. Anyone?
In the lack of a question, I'd like to again strengthen your argument. You are touching on extremely important topics. I'm happy that at least few engineers like you are completely, I must say, pardon my saying, got out of engineering and thinking in this, what people call lateral thinking, out of the box thinking, whatever thinking that you may like to call. Let's not put labels. The way that you are thinking. Okay, I hate giving labels. And if you look at the literature, they are talking about the strategic planning versus traditional planning. They talk about strategic planning. You have gone, I think you know about the PESTEL analysis, political, economic, social, and technological and legal aspects. I'd like you to continue this mission to educate engineers in particular. We have learned enough engineering. In fact, and we have an overdose of engineering knowledge amongst our engineers. We know exactly how to do analysis, super analysis, superior analysis. That's absolutely needed, my dear friends. He never undermined analysis. I must strengthen that. So as you said, I want you to do a critical analysis of your speech. Please don't run away thinking that he was speaking against analysis. No. If we do not know how to do analysis, we can't be engineers in the first place. Yeah. What you're trying to bring in is a completely different dimension. That is why all the others are mortally scared of engineers getting into administrative posts. Because engineers, like, I mean, if they have traits like Nishanta, get into administrative place, they'll find solutions using synthesis while having a strong analytical background. I was listening to, once again, I'm giving a lot of examples. Just after my retirement, a couple came to me whose wife was top-notch in the central bank. So we got into, obviously, my two engineering friends got into an argument with the two wives. Now you heard my wife shouting about because he knows that I'm trying to dominate someone else's speech, right? So, so we got into a discussion on engineering, and the two wives started blaming us as engineers. You know, they don't know how the wives talk about engineers, except Bhadra, right? Now, always she was saying, this Citibank lady told, අනේ මන් දන්නේ මොකටද කියලා මේගොල්ලෝ ඉංජිනේරු ගන්නවා central bank එකට. That's true. I know a lot of my engineering friends are working in central bank. ඉතින් ඕක අමතක වුණා ටික වෙලක් යනකොට. Again the discussion kept on going on. By mistake she said, වැඩක් කරගන්න ඕනේ නම් අපි දෙන්නේ ඉංජිනේරු එකට. central bank එකේ analytical work, economic research work, she was doubly declined. So we were having a hearty laugh, two of us. Just now you said these people are taking so many engineers to central bank, but they were worried, they were protective. They didn't want to have engineers in central bank. And hard on the heels, later on she forgot. And she admitted, if you want to get a proper job done, they had to get hold of an engineer who is working in central bank. So this is where the problem is. I mean, my dear friends, there will be quite a lot of young engineers in this audience. Venture out, please. Venture out. Don't be in your comfort zones. Don't be in your engineering zone. You have to be engineers. I will never, I think, I'm sure Nishant is not going to contest that point. We are both engineers. We value engineering. Give value to yourself, but still think like Nishant. That's all I can tell you. That's my plea to you.
Okay, thank you, Shavi, for the again. Now I think it looks like that there are no questions. So therefore, maybe organizers can wind up. But before they take up the floor, I would like to thank the Civil Engineering Sectional Committee to giving me this opportunity to speak my thoughts or share my thoughts with the young engineers, or rather with the engineering community. It's very, very rarely we get this opportunity. And thank you, Kamala, and the Civil Engineering Sectional Committee for giving me this opportunity. And I wish all the engineers very best in their careers.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much, Nishanta. And we really appreciate the messages given and the contribution made by past President Shavi as well. Sapumal, over to you.
Thank you, madam. So I'd like to take this opportunity to express gratitude to Engineer Nishant Kamaludasa for dedicating your valuable time to educate and share your knowledge with us on how engineers shall make decisions in a boundless larger world, and how we should think out of the box. So it was an interesting and informative session, and I would like to thank you again on behalf of the Civil Engineering Sectional Committee and all the fellow members and the participants. Also, I would like to thank Engineer Sharindranath Fernando, our past president, for joining us with today's session and adding our valuable thoughts for the session. And to wrap up the session, I would like to thank all the members of Civil Engineering Sectional Committee for support and guidance given to organize this event. Also the staff of IESL for their technical support and publicity given for the success of this event. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants for joining with today's event, and I would like to invite all of you to join with our upcoming knowledge sharing sessions, which would be much interesting and informative. Thank you and good night.